Hello and welcome to the second in our series of programmes in association with Accenture that looks at the smart connectivity potential and requirements for the future home. Whilst our first programme focused on solving the needs of the consumer, today's discussion investigates the technical science of the business prospect and what it will take to make the future home a reality. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content at TelecomTV, and joining me now are Boris Maurer, who is Managing Director at Accenture, and Thomas van Briel, SVP Architecture and Strategy at Deutsche Telekom. Good to see both of you. Thanks for joining us in the programme today. Thomas, I'd like to ask you first, how have communications networks held up to the new demands and usage patterns placed upon them during the pandemic?
Thank you. Actually, we are very happy that they kept up really well. We've seen that we were able to serve our citizens here in Germany with a tremendous service, even though the demands were picking up significantly. I mean, we've seen a doubling in voice capacity being consumed. But as we had quite resilient networks, we were able to cope with whatever happened there. What we actually saw that in terms of user experience, the biggest downsides that we perceived were more on the service provider side, maybe a little bit on peering bottlenecks or things like that. So things that with a good partner relationship you could iron out quite easily. We've seen what the customer experience was, and we were happy that we had a very resilient network across the whole chain, from our transit peering partners to the customer's home, building not only on a good backbone, but also on a very reliable copper network that we built, even though we are now betting on fiber, of course, for the future as the core for our strategy. So that was a relief. We saw that the overall capacity has almost doubled in network traffic. Luckily, the peak traffic was more like 10% up in reality. People more started to use our services during the day, of course, requiring also a better service, a reliable service as they were working from home.
Thank you, Thomas. And Boris, Accenture conducted research into how customers are responding to CSPs during the COVID-19 crisis. What was it that you discovered?
No, I think that the CSPs really did a great job in connecting people, in caring for their employees, in also contributing to their communities. And then they provided a great service. And I can only confirm that. So we actually found globally, and it's more or less the same in most countries that we looked at, that 68% of the people now find broadband more important than before the crisis. Trust has really increased. 62% of all the customers really trust their operator, and so we really see clear signs that telcos have regained eminence in this crisis, a good basis now to move out of the crisis and be closer to their customers than ever before.
Indeed. Thanks, Boris. And Thomas, with so many of us now living and working from home, what trends are you seeing in areas such as home working, home entertainment, streaming, gaming, etc.?
I mean, we have a couple of things that we really see. For one, home network experience is really what we require that the customer says he feels well in consuming his services. So even if you're sitting on the sofa, you want to make sure that whatever you do is really according to your expectations. And that gets more and more important, not only in the work environment that we saw earlier, but also with new trends coming up like gaming. We all ourselves started a new service, Magenta Gaming, streaming actually service games from the cloud that is running really well and building on network capabilities that we have to take care of latency and other things to provide a superior service. But that, of course, requires that also the customer network at home is up to speed and be able to cope with it. And supporting that also from the service side, so from the service desk, helping the customer get this in shape so that they can live the best digital life, something that is an important mission for us.
Yes, these changes are absolutely fascinating to observe, and it certainly puts a lot of pressure on the CSPs. Boris, is there a change in the expectations of customers towards their service providers as a result of this change we're talking about in usage patterns and behaviour? And if so, how does the industry fulfil these expectations?
Yes, there is definitely a change in expectations from the customers. And we very clearly see that actually every experience now, especially while everybody's working from home, living at home, playing at home, the services that are brought to us are all seamless experiences like we expect from an OTT service. And that is actually very, very important, because also one of the facts that we found is that actually experience is driving trust. And especially for CSPs, so for our telcos, they gained a lot of trust in this COVID times, a lot of eminence. And to sustain that, actually creating a great experience is the only way how they can basically hold up this trust and build on it and take advantage from that.
Thank you, Boris. The opportunities are certainly there. And Thomas, are you also seeing a change in how CSPs are regarded by their customers?
Yes, absolutely. We see that. It's not just by the customer reaction to our services, and I think we covered that before. And actually, I would like to dwell a little bit on what Boris just said. Of course, we see ourselves climbing up the value chain and actually offering a trusted service and be there a little bit of a platform, and also learn to do co-innovation with other partners to become more relevant and to leverage all the great capabilities that we have in the network that are currently still underused. And one of the important things that we will have to learn in this is to play in new value chains, to not only have our own services with a monthly fee charged to the customer, but rather to go into verticals, work with developers, and open up in a trustful way what the network is capable of doing, and use the customer's data on their behalf in order to optimize their experience. And we are exploring that space very actively.
Now, 5G is regarded widely as the network platform that will take the industry into the future, the platform from which to deliver many new services. So I'd like to ask both of you, how do you think 5G will enhance the smart home experience? And what new services do you think consumers will have access to? Thomas, what are your views on this?
Yeah, there are a couple of angles there. If you start from the maybe a little less interesting, but nevertheless crucial part to build the trust is to make sure that the connectivity is there. And what we see is that we build supporting capabilities like, for example, repeaters or other things, so that also in-house in the customer's home, the experience is what it should be. So those are the basics. But then, of course, we rely on the more advanced networking features that are built over time in order to create new services. And if you look, for example, at the things that we touched earlier with gaming, this is where you really can profit if you have the support to control the connectivity that your customer has end to end. Actually, in 5G, obviously, it's much more in the mobile use case than in the customer's home. But still, we will use the same core capabilities to do that across the network, no matter what the connectivity is. So the possibility to build those services and control what the customer gets in terms of latency, in terms of jitter, is an obvious one. It has been talked about a lot. That one is coming. We see requirements surfacing, not only with our own services, but also being approached from partners, like some of the hyperscalers with their own respective offerings. And we see that we are in healthy competition there. So talks are intensive. That is something that we do explore. But beyond that, there are also other things where we really see that we can deliver new things to the customers. So, for example, we can work with their, let's say, automotive provider with their automotive vendors and make sure that the over-the-air updates are taking place in enough time so that these kind of services are integrated and seamless for the customer, things like that. So that is really helping. And what we see is that we cannot drive all these innovations by ourselves. I mean, for some parts, we can play a platform game, we can integrate, we can offer APIs to our services and then connect the TV to other communication services or things like that. But we will have to learn to lose a little bit of control and just say, look, this is what we can do in a trustful manner, making sure that security and privacy are being taken care of. And then see what development ecosystem can build out of that to fully leverage the potential that we have, especially with 5G core capabilities.
Thank you, Thomas. And Boris, what are your thoughts?
So let me start on what Thomas just elaborated upon, and let me start with this example around the automotive. So getting the car also into the play. I think that is exactly one example on how telcos could play across different areas, not only in the home, but actually connecting wherever we go. We actually believe, and that is also what we laid out in the book that we wrote about the future home, that the future home is not only at home, but it's everywhere where we go. And it comes with us. And actually what we're expecting is that we're getting the same experience and the same access to services with us wherever we go. And that we stay connected with our loved ones. That may be at home with our family, but it also may be, in my case, with my kids or with my mother. So it's actually something where I want to have more and more a personal service. So the internet, also enabled by 5G in the future, will become a much more personal service for me. And that is where I want to have an experience that I can carry with me, but I also want to have a richer experience where I am. So, and I think the possibilities of providing low latency services, providing also the capability to do computing directly on the router, on the edge, and provide more instant services to me will create a much richer experience in the future, and will be much more interesting. The question then is, and just think about it, if telcos really would not only take on this role to be the trusted partner of their customers, but also help them to interoperate, because a lot of the services that we have today, also in the consumer IoT or future homes space, are still app-enabled devices. So they are silos, they are working for themselves. They are integrated with a piece of hardware, and you can do exactly one thing with that. But imagine that telcos would step up and really provide this interoperability, the security around that, and provide the platform services to other companies and to developers to really do service creation on top of all the resources that will get connected. I think this is where the real opportunity lies, not only to provide a do-it-yourself hardware-enabled experience into the home, but really think about seriously how to evolve into a more of a platform play where the telcos help interoperating connected objects to the network, but then also enabling easy service creation across all those resources which will be made available. So this is, I think, the real opportunity that telcos could go after.
Well, let's discuss the telco role in this. Thomas, how can CSPs ensure that they're able to monetize these new services, as opposed to perhaps yet again investing in infrastructure that ends up bringing greater benefit to the OTTs and hyperscalers?
Actually, I see quite a good chance for us right now, because for the first time we're really being approached by partners to say they want to use things that we're capable of doing and want to build on that, some edge controlled connectivity competencies, things like that. And we have different conversations than we had before. So obviously we've hit a spot where we see that a customer need is really there. So that's one thing. Then being open about that to build these kind of ecosystems, those partnerships will be absolutely crucial on the way forward. And at the same time, making sure that we are not getting bogged down by either competing more on a horizontal level and rather build alliances, as we just have made with the 4 biggest European operators to drive things forward. And I think some of the opportunities that we covered earlier are good examples for those crucial initiatives where we can see that we can build good momentum. Then, of course, it will also require some bargaining power, some discipline to come up with models that actually allow us to monetize. And whether that is now a transaction-based or a revenue sharing or other opportunities is all fair game to discuss. We must be sure that sufficient monetization of the capabilities is there. And as a starting point, we see that with international peering, it is possible to do so, even though not widespread. So there are good and bad examples. But we have to get there and be mindful about how we really bring our control points into this equation. We see the openness. We will see it happening, I guess, this year. Too early for announcements, but thinking is heavy on how to proceed in this.
And what do you think, Boris? The opportunities are huge, but how do CSPs avoid their past missteps?
So I think I love to hear what Thomas is sharing. So I think that the problem of telcos has been that they only looked at their own patch and then they tried on their customer base to actually get up. But they never really got their minds around reach, so scalability. And this is exactly where the OTTs hit them. That they came with propositions that globally scale, that are cloud-based, internet-based, and that they find hard to actually compete with in their traditional models. So initiatives like the Open RAN Alliance, which we also as Accenture joined and are very, very happy to collaborate that. We think it's really a great initiative, clawing back a little bit of relevance in the industry and actually trying to get more ownership of the future, more horizontal, software-based world that they're entering into. And that also will force them, and I think it's the O-RAN Alliance, as, for example, also higher in the stack, the Open Digital Architecture from TM Forum, are 2 great examples where telcos are transcending their historical barriers and rethink the world in a horizontal way. And I think this is exactly the opportunity. And then the monetization opportunities will come if they change the mindset and really think about that. Of course, the connection into the home and the connection into the car and the connection everywhere will still have a physical element. But that while this in the past was more or less the most important control point where telcos monetize the access, there will be new opportunities if they rethink this world from the new business models that are arising, in which more data becomes the control point, and data flows and data stacks become the new currency. And I think this is where telcos just started to solve the problem for themselves on how to monetize that. And this is a whole new ocean of opportunities coming there. And that, of course, will not only be won by subscription-based models, but there will be transaction-based, there will be a revenue sharing and other opportunities that telco will need to go after. But it's actually like we see today already in the cloud space, that there is monetization opportunities for this, and telcos just need to change a little bit the perspective on how they look at those opportunities.
So finally, Boris, how can we actually foster an innovation ecosystem for smart home services and applications, and one that will be funneled via the CSPs?
So this is a very good question, and historically this worked so. I mean, we have a lot of initiatives, and many CSPs burned their finger on the question of generating revenues out of a connected home or smart home initiatives. In the future, I think they need to really also there rethink whether they want to give it another try, to use what they're building around the O-RAN Alliance, what they're building around the other more open and horizontal initiatives like ODA, whether they complement that really with solving for the privacy and security issues, so providing a privacy and security framework, and help getting to more interoperability for services, and then actually really become the labs with the APIs that they're exposing, and become the labs and the design studios on which actually developers and the whole ecosystem can innovate and bring new services to the customers.
Well, Boris and Thomas, thank you both very much for joining us in the discussion today and sharing your views. As mentioned at the start of the programme, this is the second in our series of industry discussions looking at the future home. If you have yet to watch our first programme, where Boris and I are joined by Tom Guy of Vodafone, then you can do so anytime. There's a link to the show right here below the video. For now though, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.